Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
Para crer em seres extraterrestres, primeiro temos que crer no heliocentrismo. E isso a elite tem implantado na cabeça da gente através dos meios de comunicações e no sistema educacional. E é o que está a elite fazendo na atualidade, promovendo em massa através do cinema, dos jogos. Tudo isso relacionado a espaço sideral, alienígenas, invasões extraterrestres.
You look around the world, what people believe. I mean, statistics in the United States say around 50% of Americans already think that UFOs are aliens visiting the Earth. Now, there was a recent poll in the United Kingdom. More people believe in extraterrestrials in the UK than God, okay? And that's a fact. And so to me, the strong delusion is already here. The groundwork has been laid. And our hypothesis is that these powers and principalities that Paul writes about in Ephesians 6, these demonic forces have seeded this idea into the world, so we are primed and ready.
Science fiction has exploded in America and the world as a staple theme for films, movies, books, and video games. Could this all be part of the plan to prepare the world for disclosure? A 2008 Scripps UFO poll showed that over 74% of 18 to 24-year-olds believed it was likely that intelligent life exists on other planets.
Esta falsa invasão alien que estão planejando teriam por objetivo dois propósitos. Um seria para criar a nova ordem mundial a fim de que as nações se unissem para nos defender dessas invasões extraterrestres.
In this past year, made great progress in ending the long era of conflict and Cold War. We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle.
A new world order can emerge.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations.
E a segunda razão seria para fazer todas as pessoas descrer do que está escrito na Bíblia, porque segundo a Bíblia, o homem é a criação suprema do Criador. E que nós ficamos na Terra e que não há seres superiores aos homens. E de fato, a elite criou uma Matrix, um mundo paralelo. E nele, estas invasões aliens são possíveis. E é assim que conseguirão enganar a maioria da população, porque as pessoas estão alheias à verdade, estão enganadas com heliocentrismo, evolução, etc. Muito tem se comentado da possibilidade da criação de hologramas no céu, e com isso criar a ilusão de uma invasão alienígena. Seja qual for o método utilizado, fica claro que farão uma grande farsa e conseguirão enganar a muitas pessoas. Mas neste momento já sabemos a verdade. E o motivo desta união será para lutar juntos contra esta ameaça externa. Cada vez mais líderes mundiais estão falando sobre alienígenas e seres extraterrestres. Inclusive falam de uma possível invasão alien em um futuro não muito distante.
Se não fosse muito importante, vários presidentes americanos e vários prêmios Nobel de Economia e por aí vai não estariam falando sobre esse assunto, tá? Então é um assunto muito importante, não pela relevância em si própria, mas pelas pessoas de alta relevância que têm comentado sobre o assunto. Esse tema voltou à minha mente aqui, à minha cabeça, por causa do trailer do filme A Chegada. Ouviu? Somos um mundo sem um líder único, ou seja, o líder único está fazendo falta, a gente está precisando de um líder único no mundo, tá? Esse é o grande detalhe aqui. Tá vendo? Podemos enfrentar uma guerra global. Uma guerra, não é uma guerra global homens contra homens, é uma guerra global humanidade versus não humanos, né? E aí a necessidade de um líder global. Em 24 horas, o planeta Terra inteiro é governado por uma única pessoa e essa única pessoa pode ser o anticristo. Então vamos lá, é New York Post, tá? Não é site de delírios, né, tá? Se você não conhece New York Post, tá? Um dos veículos de comunicação de maior relevância nos Estados Unidos, tá? Qual é a matéria? Bill Clinton, ataque alienígena nos uniria. E eu investiguei a área 51. E ele fala aqui, ó, talvez seja a única maneira de nos unir num mundo cada vez mais dividido. Pense sobre todas as diferenças entre as pessoas da Terra se tornariam bem pequenas se nós fôssemos ameaçados por um invasor espacial. E se a gente for ver aqui o Jornal Nacional, né, a própria Hillary tá aqui. Hillary disse que quer abrir os arquivos do governo sobre ETs, tá? Além disso, a gente tem o ganhador do Prêmio Nobel da Economia, Paul Krugman, tá? Aqui na revista Time, tá? Não é soulouco.com.br, nem pentecostal, esquizofrênico. Não, revista Time, tá, gente? Paul Krugman, uma invasão alienígena resolveria os problemas econômicos, tá? Uma invasão alienígena, tá certo? E ele é também colunista do New York Times. Aqui a gente tem uma foto de Hillary nova, com um cordão muito estranho, tá? Símbolos mágicos aqui, tá certo? Um punhal, um símbolo egípcio, coisas estranhas. Esse cara aqui é Lawrence Rockefeller, tá? Ele é filho do John D. Rockefeller, que foi um dos caras mais poderosos do mundo e continua sendo, tá? E o Lawrence Rockefeller, ele é um grande defensor da ideia de que os alienígenas existem, que a gente precisa começar a falar sobre esse assunto. E aqui Hillary conversando com ele, tá com um livro na mão, que foi muito fácil de identificar qual é esse livro, tá certo? Esse livro aqui é esse, você pode ver pelo olhinho aqui, de cabeça para baixo, né? É exatamente o livro. Esse livro é o Are We Alone? Estamos Nós Sozinhos, de Paul Davis, tá? Que é um médico americano muito respeitado e professor de várias universidades renomadas americanas. Então ela tá lendo um livro sobre alienígenas, conversando com um cara que é defensor de toda essa ideia alienígena.
The threat to this world from some other species from another planet outside in the universe. We'd forget all of the local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Well, I think, look, what do we know? We know now we live in an ever-expanding universe. We know that there are billions of stars and planets literally out there, and the universe is getting bigger. We know from our fancy telescopes that just in the last 2 years, more than 20 planets have been identified outside our solar system that seem to be far enough away from their suns and dense enough that they might be able to support some form of life. So it makes it increasingly less likely that they might be able to support some form of life. So it makes it increasingly less likely that we're alone.
Oh, you're trying to give me a hint that there are aliens.
No, I'm trying to tell you I don't know.
Oh, you're trying to give me a hint that there are aliens.
No, I'm trying to tell you I don't know.
Oh.
But if we were visited someday, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that it's not like Independence Day.
Yeah, right.
That it's a conflict.
Well, now we have friendly
Maybe the only way to unite this incredibly divided world of ours. They're out there. We better think of how all the differences among people on Earth would seem small if we felt threatened by a space invader. That's the whole theory of independence.
You're right.
Everybody gets together and makes nice and,
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat.
2015, Barack Obama talks about aliens on Jimmy Kimmel.
This is something I feel like if I was the president, and it's unlikely that that is ever going to happen.
You never know.
If I was the president...
It was unlikely that I was going to be president.
The moment I was inaugurated, my hand would it'd still be hot from touching the Bible, and I would immediately race to wherever they have the files about Area 51 and the UFOs, and I'd go through everything to find out what happened.
Right.
Did you do that?
That's why you will not be president. Because that's the first thing that you would do.
It's at
The aliens won't let it happen. You reveal all their secrets. They exercise strict control over us.
Now, you know, there are a lot of people that are going to examine your facial expressions here, every twitch, everything, and say, and of course, so did you look? Did you see? Did you explore?
I can't reveal anything.
Oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in, and he did check, and there was nothing.
Well, you know, that's what we're instructed to say.
All right.
2016, Hillary Clinton talks about aliens on Jimmy Kimmel.
When we had your husband, President Clinton, on the show, he said, I asked him about UFOs in Area 51, and if he looked in, because if I was president, that's the first thing I do. I go right into those files and see what was going on.
Right.
And he said that he did do that.
Yes.
And that he didn't find anything.
Well, I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah, why not?
Right? And you know, there's a new name. It's unexplained aerial phenomenon.
Unexplained aerial phenomenon,
Yep,
really?
Yep, UAP. That's the latest nomenclature.
I like the old one. I like UFO. I don't know why.
Well, I think we can use them interchangeably, but I would like us to go into those files and hopefully make as much of that public as possible. If there's nothing there, let's tell people there's nothing there.
What if there is something there?
Well, if there is something there, unless it's a threat to national security, I think we ought to share it with the public.
Well, what if everybody's all hopped up on medical marijuana and everybody gets paranoid? I would love it.
That's why I want more research.
If you share it with me, I'll decide what is the best course of action. I really have my ear to the ground.
Well, I'm more than happy to do that.
Crisis of leadership. We've been talking about this all week. But what if there was some sort of outer space crisis? An alien invasion sounds crazy, perhaps, but then who thought we'd ever see the stock market swing 5% a day all week long? So maybe it's not as far-fetched as it sounds. If aliens invaded, who would step up to lead us in that fight, and could we even win? That's just one of the questions the Discovery Channel's new series, Curiosity, looks at. Joining me now is physics professor Michio Kaku, who is a consultant for the series. Professor, welcome. The biggest question before we get any invasion is, do aliens even exist, and how would we know?
Well, the Kepler satellite currently orbiting in outer space has identified about 50 planets that seem very much Earth-like. In fact, every week we discover another Jupiter-sized planet in outer space. Now, to be sure, most of them probably have no more than microbial life, just germs. But a few of them may have intelligent life, perhaps even more advanced than what we have on Earth.
Now, so how does this actually work? When Discovery decided they were going to do a show on alien invasions, your phone rings because you're on the sort of speed dial for theoretical physicists who can help them do the war game for how this might play out?
Well, believe it or not, we physicists have actually studied the question of what happens if we do encounter a hostile advanced civilization.
Open your mind to the possibility that one day we will make contact with an intelligent civilization in outer space that could be thousands, millions of years ahead of us in technology.
The Kepler satellite has identified 2,000 planets orbiting other star systems. So tonight, when you look at the night sky, realize that somebody could be looking back at you. Now, if there is a life form out there, they could be literally millions of years ahead of us. The universe is 13.7 billion years old, so a million years is nothing compared to it.
I mean, we have nothing to offer them.
Are we going to get answers in our lifetime about this?
Well, next we're going to focus our radio telescope to see whether we can eavesdrop on their I Love Lucy. Maybe they too have, Leave It to Beaver and TV shows like that. So we're going to focus our radio efforts now on this star to see whether there's any regular radio emission from that planet.
Oh, it's so exciting. Michio, thank you so much for joining us.
The big question of, do you think there's intelligent life elsewhere out there? Do you think there is? And if there is, do you think it's visited us before?
Well, the big question is there intelligent life on the Earth? And I think not, by looking at the presidential debates. However, we have to look at the fact that just this week, NASA released the fact that 1,200 planets were discovered by the Kepler satellite just this past week.
We always learned in school that there were 9 planets if you wanted to include Pluto.
Yes, if you did or you didn't want to. But with all the newfangled telescopes out there and in space, the discoveries seem to keep coming. So Linda Schmidt tells us about NASA's biggest haul yet.
NASA's Kepler Space Telescope has made a groundbreaking discovery: 1,284 new planets. This NASA animation shows that it is the single largest collection of planets that have ever been found.
I think it's really exciting to find that when you look up in the stars, at the stars at night, many of those stars have planets just like our solar system. And now we know that.
And so we now know that perhaps there are 1 billion Earth-like planets in our backyard, the Milky Way galaxy. Go out tonight and have an existential shock, looking at the night sky, realizing that there are probably 1 billion planets that are Earth-like.
I think I only had to memorize 8 of them in school. I think I got off easy.
And to think that we're the only game in town, I think is kind of presumptuous.
But that question, though, the idea that there is intelligent life and it's been here, do you think we've been visited by extraterrestrial intelligent life?
First of all, I think they're out there.
Não por acaso, a NASA é a principal promovedora da história sobre alienígenas e seres espaciais.
Well, I'm going to go out a little bit on a limb here, and I'm going to say I think we're going to have strong indications of life beyond Earth within a decade, and I think we're going to have definitive evidence within 20 to 30 years. We know where to look, we know how to look. In most cases, we have the technology. And we're on a path to implementing it. We're going to find planets around other stars that we can say we see potential signs of habitability in their atmospheres. That's all going to happen in the next 10 to 20 years.
Telescópios instalados em 5 países e no espaço observaram planetas que ficam a 29 anos-luz do Sistema Solar. Um grupo internacional de astrônomos descobriu, com a ajuda da NASA, que esses 7 exoplanetas, planetas que ficam fora do nosso Sistema Solar, orbitam bem perto da estrela anã chamada de Trevas, que é bem menor que o nosso Sol. Eles são rochosos como a Terra, foram batizados com letras, de B a H, e têm temperaturas que variam de 0 a 100 graus centígrados.
E porque sabemos que isso será uma grande farsa. Quem segue o canal do Oliver Ibanez sabe que a NASA é uma grande fraude e que tudo que a NASA faz, na verdade, são apenas montagens gráficas feitas por computador. Não apresentam nada real. Portanto, o espaço sideral, os satélites, as imagens que nos mostram são apenas farsas. Recentemente, nós pudemos observar os verdadeiros planetas e as verdadeiras estrelas. Fizemos isso através de telescópios e filmadoras com boa captação. E vimos que não são esferas enormes de terra firme no espaço sideral, mas que na verdade são apenas luminárias a uma distância curta da Terra e estão exatamente na abóbada celestial, descrita em Gênesis. E sabemos também que nenhum foguete lançado por agências espaciais ou particulares tem conseguido deixar a Terra. Todas elas parecem se chocar com um limite que se encontra no mais a 150 mil quilômetros de altura. Os únicos que dizem que conseguem sair no espaço sideral é a NASA e outras agências. Todavia, sabemos que a NASA é uma grande fraude criada por imagens de computação gráfica. Mentem para nos fazer crer que vivemos em um universo infinito com milhões e bilhões de planetas e estrelas, quando na verdade vivemos num sistema fechado, limitado.
Prominent men, meeting in secret, who directed the course of civilization, are recorded in the writings of all people. The oldest is the Brotherhood of the Snake, also called the Brotherhood of the Dragon, and it still exists under many different names. The Brotherhood of the Snake is devoted to guarding the secrets of the ages and to the recognition of Lucifer as the one and only true God. If you do not believe in God, Lucifer, or Satan, you must understand that there are great masses of people who do. And their beliefs and actions based upon those beliefs will affect me. The important fact to remember is that the leaders of both the right and the left are a small, hard core of men who have been and still are Illuminists or members of the Brotherhood. They may have been or may be members of the Christian or Jewish religion, but that is only to further their own ends. They are and always have been Luciferian and internationalists. They give allegiance to no particular nation, although they have used, on occasion, nationalism to further their causes. Their only concern is to gain greater economic and political power. The ultimate objective of the leaders of both groups is identical. They are determined to win for themselves undisputed control of the wealth, natural resources, and manpower of the entire planet. They intend to turn the world into their conception of a Luciferian totalitarian socialist state. In the process, they will eliminate all Christians, Jews, and atheists. You have just learned one, but only one, of the great mystery.
But now it has to change. Mr. President, we have to make sure that people, humans, get to believe that Satan and his angels do not really exist.
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to disconnect us from multidimensional infinity so that we don't see the world from that perspective and therefore see through the illusion and see through the nonsense and see through the lies. And then once they've disconnected people, they then program this lower level of our consciousness with a reality that suits them. And therefore, the only information that they have to get a fix on how they see life themselves and reality in general is through the eyes and the ears. And who controls that? The Illuminati control that.
They're trying to disconnect us from multidimensional infinities, and then once they've disconnected people, they then program this lower level of our consciousness with a reality that suits them.
If there's a reality out there pertaining to any alien influence, we need to sort out the government misinformation and disinformation and mind manipulation techniques that they're using. I know for a fact that the plan is to make all of us feel totally helpless. That what's happening is beyond our realm to affect because we've been taken over by aliens. That our Independence Day is dawning. So beware of that. Understand that those criminals have been keeping information and technology from us under the blanket of national security. They are 25 years ahead of us at least. They're way ahead. So when they say, it's aliens, and they show us some incredible technology, don't fall into the trap of feeling totally helpless, that this is beyond our realm to affect. Superstition begins where knowledge leaves off. And they have been keeping knowledge from us for a long time. People have all kinds of belief systems. And I'm sure each and every one of you has various and different belief systems as well. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as aliens. That would be foolish for me to even say anything like that at all. But what I am saying is that it was my experience that these were people claiming to be aliens.
People in this world are about to destroy the sovereignty of nations, take away our Bill of Rights. The UFO thing is integrally tied into this in some way. I'm not exactly sure how, but if extraterrestrials are real, then they're controlling everything, believe me. If they're not real, they're being used as a threat from without, to scare people into coming into this one world, global unity of humanity in order to face that external threat. In the process, we're going to lose. The ordinary man will lose.
You need to understand this information is deliberate to hide other things. And so there's so much of that. And some of it is surprisingly well sponsored, this information.
I'm going to sum up this talk and mention an overview of the alien agenda. The alien agenda is really decimate the planet to take the remaining human subjects as slaves, and the aliens would use this planet for their own means.
My question I'd like to ask is this. If the aliens have a 1,200 IQ, can speak all these languages, and are so powerful, what prevents them from just taking over?
Well, it's a good question. We are an alien species to them, and our germs have a tendency to kill them. They're also a dying race, and they're in far worse condition than anybody with the worst case of terminal cancer. They are in need of us to some degree.
And some of it is surprisingly well sponsored, this information.
So I think my question is actually to Clifford Stone. You said that you had seen aliens on a craft that had crashed. I wondered if you could describe what they looked like.
I could, but it would probably take a whole lot of time. The reason I state that, when I got out in 1989, we had cataloged 57 different species. You have individuals that look very much like you and myself that could walk among us and you wouldn't even notice the difference. The situation is that you have various types of what we normally call grays. We didn't call them grays in the military, but you had at least 3 types of the grays. You had some that were much taller than we were. The unique thing that I'd like to point out for the most part is that the entities that we did catalog were in fact humanoid. Now this created a situation where the scientific community was trying to figure out why that would be the case, because you would expect that if life evolved on other planets that they would take on some type of other being, so to speak, not necessarily look humanoid or be bipedal such as we are. But apparently we've got quite a few of the species out there that are humanoid in appearance, and that creates a question that yet has to be answered by science.
does that explain some of the visual glances of these things? They seem to just simply disappear. They're gone.
Exactly. I mean, they're appearing out of nowhere and then disappearing right in front of people. And that's why scientists who have no axes to grind, they just say that it doesn't make that much sense. And also, if they're just trying to observe us, to take account of what we're doing on Earth, I mean, after a while, after so many months or years or centuries, it kind of gets old. They either would take us over, or they've already discovered all the information they need to know about Earthlings, and so they're just going to take us over or make first contact and just sort of do what they need to do next. To endlessly observe us, it doesn't make any sense. It's something where, and also see if we have all these sightings, as you know much better than I do. Where are they landing? We don't see them getting out to get anything to drink or to eat. We don't see them. They've never tried to make contact with any large amount of people in a major city, and so this doesn't. And also all the endless medical procedures that the people who have claimed to have been abducted. Why the endless medical procedures? I mean, if we're talking about such an advanced race of alien beings, they don't need to do that over and over and over again.
Interesting perspective. Let's talk about some of the facts out there of evidence that may support your conclusion that the UFOs are spiritual phenomena, not physical, like so many other people also believe. What can we pinpoint again?
Well, again, it's something where you cannot have a material or physical being penetrating the ground, penetrating the water, appearing in front of people, then disappearing instantly, and then also changing colors, sometimes only when they're accelerating, with every color in the spectrum has been recorded. Many UFOs coming and making one UFO breaking apart and then going into multiple UFOs. It doesn't make sense. And then not only just that, but to get into the fact of how far they're traveling and the speeds that they would have to travel, and just the other problems with cosmic dust and traveling at the speed of light and then running into those bits of cosmic dust, the explosions that would be created, the amount of energy that would be consumed and traveling from these distances. Just all those kinds of things really scream out that you're dealing with a spiritual phenomenon, not a material or physical phenomenon.
There does seem to be a deception here, because I've always wondered, my gosh, if they're that benevolent, if they're that understanding of humankind, make yourself available.
That's why some of these other scientists have said that they seem to be trying to set people up to deceive them as if they are aliens, but the facts just say that they can't be that there's something else. It doesn't make any sense, and there's something else, a psychological deception that's going on here. And many of these scientists say, I don't know what it is, but we've concluded that it's got to be that. It's got to be something bigger is going on here than just them trying to show people that, yes, here's a UFO that you're seeing now, we are aliens, that there's got to be something else going on here, on top of the fact that the characteristics of them show that they just cannot be some material or physical craft.
Do you think humans are involved in the deception? I'm losing my voice here. I'm gonna pop it back.
As far as I think there have been deliberate hoaxes that have been perpetrated, and it's an interesting statement. I mean, there are many that could be quoted, but Gordon Creighton, who I know you know of him, probably, who died in 2003, he made this statement in the British journal Flying Saucer Review. He said, quote, "There seems to be no evidence yet that any of these craft or beings originate from outer space."
This presentation is entitled New Light on the Fallen Ones of Genesis 6 by Patrick Heron. It is because we are in the end times that knowledge is being increased. Not just technological and scientific knowledge, but biblical knowledge also. This is what Gabriel prophesied at the conclusion to the book of Daniel. I believe that what I'm about to write now is what Americans term heavy-duty information. But it is also, in my opinion, cutting-edge Bible prophecy. You may decide on this. However, one proverb to bear in mind as you set out to contemplate this teaching is this: you cannot put new wine into old wineskins. None of us want to be old wineskins. Many of my fellow end times authors and teachers have recently zeroed in on a phrase the Messiah used when speaking to his disciples regarding the signs of the end of this age and of his parousia, his coming. Quote, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be." End quote. Several of these esteemed writers go on to say that the Nephilim were on the earth in the days of Noah, and these were the giants who were the offspring of the fallen angels. These hybrid offspring went on to commit foul deeds which eventually caused the whole world to be filled with violence and evil and bloodshed, and there was only evil in men's hearts continually. Genesis chapter 6. Quote, "As it was, so shall it be." End quote. Thus they conclude, once the apocalypse kicks in, the earth will again be filled with these hybrid giants and mutants who will cause mayhem and havoc and do much damage to believers and the world at large. Some even insist that presently, in secret government tunnels under the mountains of Colorado or New Mexico, human doctors and engineers working together with fallen angels are genetically modifying these hybrid mutants in preparation for the coming day. Some refer to these giant offspring as super soldiers, which are to emerge at some point in the near future and run riot all over the world, just as they did in the days prior to the flood of Noah. I believe this thesis is fundamentally flawed. But first I must point out that I am a meat and potatoes man. This has nothing to do with me being Irish, although I do love my spuds. What I mean is, I have to see something written in black and white in Scripture, and it has to be as clear as day before I will allow it. That is, give me chapter and verse on any topic before I will accept it as gospel, as it were. Thus, everything I will promote here is backed up by Scripture. To begin, the Nephilim are not the giants who were the offspring of the fallen angels. Nephilim is a Hebrew word derived from nephal, meaning to fall. Thus, Nephilim literally means the fallen ones. The vast majority of Hebrew scholars will vouch for this. So when Genesis 6 says, quote, "the Nephilim were on the earth in those days," end quote, it is referring to the fallen angels themselves.